We're recording. Yep. What's up, dudes? This is Mike. Decided I'm gonna do a recording while I drive. My arm's probably gonna be in the way of the of the camera, but it's whatever. I didn't bring my mount. I'm driving my wife's car. I usually have my mount in my other car. That old Dodge Caliber, 2008 Dodge Caliber that I drive. But yeah, this will do. Wanted to talk about a few things. Oh, it's a baby squirrel. Cool. I've never seen a baby squirrel. Oh, it's a big old head. Anyway, so Matt posted that video earlier, and I only watched like the first 10 minutes or so, and got me thinking, where he presents his idea of zoomed in reality, right? When we zoom in on the details, we have a harder time seeing the big picture, right? But to me, anyway, and the kind of point I was trying to make in my comment, there's probably a little misunderstanding, but that's fine. Misunderstandings are going to be common, especially when it comes to just making a comment in a video, right? Because I understood his point. He's basically saying, when we focus on details, we miss the big picture. And yeah, that's 100% true. And I made a comment where all I said was the more you zoom out, the more chaotic it gets. And Matt kind of got onto me a little bit for misunderstandings. Like, I didn't misunderstand, I understood him completely. But my point, I was trying to make not really trying to make a point, I was just making a statement, you know what I mean? Where it's like, even when we focus on the details, it's chaotic and you can't see the big picture, right? But even when you zoom out, it's still chaotic. We don't understand the big picture. So even if you zoom out, right, and it's just the Punch and Judy show at the end of the day, or it's the Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood Land of Imagination, when you zoom out, right, even then, when you see that layer of reality, it's still chaotic and doesn't make sense. It's even more of a clown show. Like Matt, I think Matt's allegory, or his analogy, or rather, is on point. And it kind of makes my point as well, where it's like when we zoom out, it becomes even more of a clown show, and it's more chaotic and more crazy. At least that's the way I'm experiencing it, right? I don't know, maybe it makes more sense to Matt, but to me, it seems like when we step back from the details, the less sense it makes, and the more chaotic it seems, you know? And last night I wanted to make a presentation about chaos theory, which is this idea that Billy kind of presented, and I don't think he called it chaos theory per se, but he got into this, one of his live streams, he got into this idea of chaos, where everything seems chaotic. Like the reality, and I like to put it in this terms, where the reality the reality processes, the reality simulation can't keep up with real spiritual beings, right? With reality benders, with the mystics. Like, maybe there's like a CPU or a GPU or something overload to the point where the algorithm is just spitting out random instructions. But at the end of the day, and I made this point with this, I gotta assume it's a lady, this lady in my comment section named Lisa, who she's been talking about the political ramifications and the political points about the two asses in the nations of James T. Kirk. And I was like, I agreed with her. It's like, yeah, what you're saying makes sense, because I understand the political realm as well. Maybe not as well as some people, but the political ramifications, as I said in my last presentations, and the point Matt was making as well, it's like more taxpayer money, more security, less freedom. You know, these rallies, these MAGA rallies, are eventually going to go away because it's just too dangerous for the politicians, right? Even though, like, what happened between yesterday and today, it's like, you motherfuckers are all of a sudden afraid of being shot. Like, you didn't realize you could be shot in the open? Like, really? So Lisa was going over the political ramifications, and I just made a comment back agreeing with her. It's like, yes, I agree with you, just to make it clear that I do agree with you. But the point I'm trying to get at, and the point I like to make, is that these political the political ramifications make sense, right? They make sense 100%. And I agree with it. In my reality, that makes sense as well. But at the same time, it's chaotic, right? To me, it's chaos. To me, it's like not making sense. It's so fucking weird and abnormal, and the synchronicities are, out of this world, just fucking everywhere. With the Charlie Kirk neck thing, and that lady when I got stabbed in the neck at that fucking on that train, whatever it was, who cares? And as well, this hanging man synchronicity that seems to come back into my life, involving the neck. Right? I can't believe I didn't make this. I didn't notice this before, but again with the hanging man synchronicities, again with this repeating thing of neck, throat and neck and censorship and voice being. And a voice being silenced, right? That seems to be the running theme with this reoccurring hanging man synchronicity, which is weird because the hanging man synchronicity started off with the typical hanging man tarot card, which is the upside down man, right, hanging by one foot and making the cross with his legs, and then it moved on to the peace symbol and Nero's cross and all that bullshit, and now it's almost like it's inverted itself. It's flipped around, right, the way it's supposed to be, into the Jesus Christ motif, where this girl gets stabbed in the neck, and now this man, James T. Kirk, gets shot in the neck, repeating fractals of being silenced, repeating fractals of being sacrificed, right, involving the throat. Okay, that's my schizo rambling on that topic. But anyway, getting back to this chaos theory. I had brought up arbitrary code execution, ACE, and Kirk had researched a little bit using the CHAD, and come to find out, arbitrary code execution actually is more well known in the security field, which is what I believe. I'm gonna have to remember this on the fly from when I read it yesterday, but essentially, in essence, arbitrary code execution is basically when a hacker hacks into a system and is able to just execute code arbitrarily at their whim. Any code at all, it doesn't matter. But in the sense I'm talking about, arbitrary code execution would be more akin to a video game speedrunner, or it's usually used in the context of someone speedrunning a video game with just a controller in their hand and no outside inputs other than the controller in their hand. And this arbitrary code can be used to reprogram the game. For instance, a big example of this, or one of the very first examples of this, maybe the first example of this, was a guy about 7-8 years ago. Actually, we rewatched the video, and about 7 or 8 years ago, a guy completed the first ACE speedrun, arbitrary code execution speedrun, using just the controller. Meaning that he would, for Super Mario World, so in Super Mario World, he would move Mario around in conjunction with other in-game properties like Yoshi or a mushroom or whatever. Turtles, he was moving turtle shells around a whole lot in one stage. Basically moving the sprites around, jumping at certain spots, changing the code bit by bit arbitrarily. At a glance seems arbitrary, right? And it's really not arbitrary in a way, because it's very on purpose, if you get my meaning. So it's not so arbitrary, but they call it arbitrary code execution. Anyway, so he changes the code bit by bit to get the ending, to program the game to where he'll flag the exit, and then he'll get to the ending. He'll show the credits, right? And that's the idea of the speed run, is to get to the credits as fast as possible with just your gamepad and moving Mario around and whatever. And I think this can be done within 2 minutes now, or probably even less than a minute nowadays. It's a very fast speed run. It's its own separate category of speed runs that people like to screw with. But this idea of arbitrary code execution has been applicable to other games, even 3D games, not just 2D games, right? Like Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, where somebody used arbitrary code execution to get the ending credits in a weird location. I don't remember the details, but my point is that. Kind of forgot my point. Let me think about it for a second. So my point about that was, so arbitrary code execution And I actually made this point in one of my previous recordings, or maybe like 6 months ago, where I talked about Pokemon, where the guy the guy completes Pokemon deaf and blind, right? Deaf and blind meaning what gamepad inputs are needed to complete the game 100% every time, considering all possibilities, right? So, because of my fat roll, so the guy the guy playing Pokemon completes the game. Um, he sets up this what seemingly seems like an arbitrary thing, right? But really, he's just moving his character along the game, right, in the most optimal way possible, considering every single element that could happen, that could possibly happen, right. And at the very end, he shows this long list of game commands that he used to complete the game, right. And it wasn't a speed run; he was just trying to complete the game deaf and blind. Um, so it's kind of a callback to that, where the people who, let's say, just to give the weird example of, recording, yeah, to give the weird example of somebody using a Ouija board or using even a keyboard. A QWERTY keyboard is essentially the modern Ouija board. A lot of people don't fucking realize that, but it is. Same with the clock, the analog clock. It's got 12, it's got fucking 12 numbers, um, 12 constellations, blah, blah, blah. It's fucking witchcraft as usual, but the QWERTY keyboard is essentially a Ouija board. But this is equivalent to somebody using a Ouija board, or say little energy crystals, right, or even a cat, right, a cat to cast a magic spell. It would be like it'd be like me telling them, like, hey, dude, you don't need the Ouija board, right? You don't need the little kitty cat. You don't need energy crystals. You don't need jewels. You don't need any of that to cast these crazy spells, right? All you really need is your mind, because you're the executor of this code, right? You are the user, and all you need is your little gamepad. You may not even need that, right? But we're in these bodies. The gamepad in a person's hand while they're playing the game is an analog for our bodies, right? So all we really need is our minds and our bodies to cast these spells. The thing is, it's chaotic right now. Like, I think mystics and reality generator beings and reality benders right now, especially someone like me, who has no idea, who maybe was like an X-Men mutant situation where we have no fucking clue, like we have no idea how to use our powers. Right? We're all powerful. We're like waiting on Professor Xavier to find us and take us to the school, right? Fucking Xavier, man. What was it? The Rufus Xavier Sarsaparilla pronouns Schoolhouse Rock video. Fucking Xavier fractal. All of a sudden, fuck you. Anyway, Professor Xavier. There's something to that. I can't remember exactly what it was. Me and Kirk were having a good laugh about. Might have been the kangaroo thing. So yeah, we're like the X-Men. We're like a recruit, right? We're like a recruit for the X-Men because our powers are unstable and just unruly and chaotic. And what's going on right now in the present, like this thing with James T. Kirk and all this crap, this Ukrainian lady that Billy, who now sees as somebody that he may have known, who he gave a Uber drive, a Uber Lyft drive to, not to, but who had paid for an Uber. He was the driver. He could have swore it was this woman, the same girl, probably recognized her as the same blonde girl from Ukraine. He so happened to pick up, right, and had a conversation with, and this is his reality, man. From his point of view, this is what I'm saying. His point of view, this makes sense. All right, that he picked up this Ukrainian girl, maybe a decade ago. I'm not sure how long it was. But in his reality, in his chaos reality, it makes total sense because the result is the same. All right, same with this woman, Lisa. Say her name. Her name's Lisa, one of my subscribers. So Lisa makes this connection. She's making these connections with the political thing, right? And I agree with her, right? It makes sense in my reality. So the end result's the same, right? This James T. Kirk incident, the result's the same. But even in my chaos world, where this hangman synchronicity is taking place, where this girl gets stabbed in the neck, and now we have James T. Kirk shot in the neck, the result is the same. and now we have Billy, right? Billy gives this Uber ride to 10 years ago or whenever it was, and then this incident with the girl, Ukrainian girl, happens, right? That he happens to know some random stranger, and the end result is the same for him, right? And it's like, duh, the result's the same. We're living in the present. But yeah, that's not my point. The point is, all this chaos magic and shit is it's still gonna result in the same thing, right? Even though we create it. But when we create it, there has to be a metaphysical handshake involved where we have to agree on the final outcome. Like, for instance, I'm standing in front of this Walmart building, right? In a lot of people's minds, this Walmart building may not make sense. Like, why is this building here? Where did the materials come from? Like, where did the money come from? It doesn't make sense that it's stocked with meat and cheese and all this perishable goods every fucking day, right? But in their reality, in this person's reality, the end result is the same because the meats are there, the cheese is there, blah, blah, blah. It makes sense. And then you can ask some asshole economists, where the fuck are all the meats coming from? And they can break it down. They can do the research, right? They'll break it down for you. And it makes sense in their head because the result is the same. Chaos realm. It's a chaos reality. And in a way, I don't know, maybe in a fucking weird way, the economist who's doing all this research, right, is bending the reality to fit the narrative because human beings are narrative driven individuals, right? We're stuck in this 4D realm where cause and effect have to make sense because we're story driven, we're narrative driven, and the story has to make sense, right? So all these people, let's say for instance, just to give an example, in Matt's comments section, who are focusing on the details and sending them emails and all that, right? The end result makes sense in their reality. The research they do makes sense in their reality. And it doesn't make sense in anybody else's reality but them. And this is complete chaos, man, to me. In me, my reality, this is chaos. This is what I meant in my comment where I'm like, the more you zoom out, the more chaotic it gets. And Matt disagrees, which is fine, dude. We can have disagreements. And then on my next post, it's like, yeah, I get you, but it's like, when you zoom out and the Punch and Judy show is there, right? It's still a clown show. It's still chaos. It's still a chaos realm at the end of the day. That was my point. When you zoom out, the chaos is still there. I don't know, man. It's just fucking strange. Anyway, I hope that rambling made sense or even the smallest amount of sense. Like I said, I wanted to talk about this yesterday because I was going to have examples and I was going to have a video to play and all that bullshit. And I was like, well, I guess I don't really need that. I mean, I can give examples, right? Like, real quick, I can talk about in Grand Theft Auto, right? I talked about the RNG mechanics, which is a random number generator mechanics, to generate reality around the player, right? Your player comes out of a building, and a lot of people that played the game noticed that planes tend to crash into buildings or planes tend to fall out of the sky when they get immediately after getting out of a building, out of a loading zone. Okay, it's not limited to just a building, but to a loading zone as well. So they get out of the building, right? And it's chaotic. And it's like that in real life where something has to happen. You're the reality generator being. You're like Billy told a story where I don't remember the details, okay, but he was in the corner and it's like multiple days in a row something crazy was happening on that corner, and he said that there's a lot of weird energy in this corner of the street. And I made a point in his comment section. It's like, no, you're generating it. I'm not saying you're the source of the bad vibes, but I'm saying you walk into reality expecting this craziness. Maybe not on the frontal lobe part thinking about it. You're expecting craziness, but it's going to happen because that's what you manifest, right? So you're manifesting all this weird shit every day at this one specific location because something has to happen. The reality has to show you something. The video game has to show you something, right? Like in Grand Theft Auto, the reality has to generate nonsense. Just like a lot of people notice also in Grand Theft Auto that cars tend to like swerve into you on purpose. It's like, yeah, that's the point. The fucking reality has to generate something. Anyway, I think that's good enough. I didn't stutter too much. I don't think. So I don't feel like I don't really have to edit this. So yeah, let me know what you think about this. Maybe I'll retouch on this subject. I think it's a really important topic, this chaos theory. I'm going to start calling it chaos theory. I'm not sure if Billy used that specific phrase, but I like it. I like the name chaos theory, but it's just something to talk about, dude. I'm not trying to I don't think that I'm necessarily getting into the weeds, but I'm just talking about the way the reality might function. Even then, at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter, right? What matters? Like, what really matters? I'm sitting at home playing video games, playing Silk Song, or right now I'm going to buy a new fan because the motor in our old fan is going off and not drawing power correctly. So you can obviously hear it in the motor that it's not drawing power the way it's supposed to, and that's kind of concerning, right? So the motor in our fan's dying off in our living room. Let me go buy a new one. Does that matter? It's like, well, yeah, I don't want to be hot. Like this chaos theory, does that matter? It's like, yeah, I'm trying to make sense of the world. Of course it matters. It matters to me. Fuck you. Anyway, y'all take it easy. Let me know what you think.